Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode number 24 of season 3, y'all know the deal. I got to talk to you about a few quick things. First off, if you are new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe. And then also, you may have noticed it's been a couple weeks since we uploaded. First off, sorry about that. Second off, just with holidays, I got married. Ryan's, in summer break from school. It's just been kind of chaotic and we've been all over the place. So hopefully in these next couple weeks, we'll be getting back to regularly uploading. So just be out on the lookout for that. And please subscribe, as we will be uploading a lot more regularly soon here. Also, if you happen to be tuning in to this week's episode, but aren't so much into long form content, make sure to follow us on Instagram. That link is in the description below this video. Our Instagram link, where we try to post 3 clips a week, debate topics, hot takes. So if you want to stay in the know with everything going on with the Detroit Pistons and stay in the know with some of our episodes, make sure to go follow us on Instagram. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. And Ryan, I'm excited for this episode because yes, does it stink in the off season that you don't get to watch Pistons game? Yes. I love watching ball. We are ball guys. We love watching ball. But in the off season, there's always a bunch of different shakeups, drama, contract negotiations, possible trades to talk about. So much fun, so many different fun scenarios to talk about. And today we are going to be talking updates to the Pistons rosters. We're not going to be talking about possible trades, possible free agents that the Pistons can pick up, rather. We're going to talk about strictly of what has happened so far, so that if maybe you missed a few things, or if people missed some, details in contracts, we can kind of talk about it. So Ryan, to start today's episode, we are going to talk about the guys who the Pistons have lost, and they lost a couple key guys. Some of the standout names are Simone Fontecchio, Tim Hardaway Jr., Dennis Schroeder, and Malik Beasley. And there's a whole lot of talk about with Malik Beasley in itself. We might do an episode just for Malik. But as far as losing guys like Tim Hardaway Jr., Dennis Schroeder, what kind of negative impact will that make on the Pistons? Do you see that relating to maybe a tough season upcoming, or do you think it's a good thing to let some of our younger guys maybe take a bigger role this season?
I think it's a good thing. The reason why I think it's a good thing is because obviously you want to establish a culture. JB Bickerstaff, Trajan Langdon wanted to do that from day one, something that Monty Williams and Troy Weaver did not want to do. They wanted to bring in these key veteran players that have had a lot of success elsewhere, and just wanted to find some guys that were hungry, wanted to work with the young players, but also work on their games too. And that's why you went out and you traded for both of those 2 guys in the offseason. Well, one in the offseason, one in the season. Offseason being Tim Hardaway Jr., season being Dennis Schroeder. And both of those trades, we gave up pretty much nothing to get them. And the impact that they had on our team this year was crazy. But I think it's a good thing that those 2 guys have found good situations to play elsewhere. Like Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to have a fantastic upcoming season in Denver. I truly do believe that, because based off of what he did this year, he's not going to be leaned on as much like he was this past year in Detroit. But you have Nikola Jokic, who is by far one of the world's best players. And then you have just a great culture already there established in Denver that he can just go in and play. And then Dennis Schroeder, obviously he's going to hurt, because in our rotation, now that you possibly take Malik Beasley out of the mix, you don't really have a true backup point guard right now, which is tough, because even if Beasley was there, Beasley's not really a 1. He can facilitate if necessary, but he's not a 1. So then it comes down to the line of like, okay, then who's up next? You have Marcus Sasser. Marcus Sasser's good, but I don't, unless we are in the complete and utter blind, I don't think he's changed at all from last season to this upcoming season. I don't think there's that much of like a growth spurt there. and that's not being punny based off his height. But then you look at, okay, you bring in Chaz Lanier. Chaz Lanier is more of a guard than a three
Yep.
or a four. And I've loved what I've seen from him so far in summer league. But like
Yep.
he's still a rookie. There's a reason why he was a second round pick. But even with that being said, Trajan Langdon went out and got him. He it wasn't one of those guys where it's like you had to move up to get him. Trajan Langdon knew that he was going to be available. And to me personally, I think that might have been a steal of a pick because if you look at the first round there, obviously there's a lot of talent, but a lot of the talent actually slid to the later picks. I think this year's draft was a lot heavier than what people think, and that's because you see the effect that Lanier's had in Summer League thus far. So I think there's a lot of issues with losing Schroeder compared to Tim Hardaway Jr. I think there's a lot of issues losing Malik Beasley just because it's Beasley. It's
Yeah.
Threesley. He's good. We
Right.
love him. Simone, I don't think it's the end of the world losing Simone because I love him, but he did what we expected him to. It wasn't like he blew us out of the water. There would be a couple games at times where it's like, wow, where did that come from, Simone? But then
Mhm.
there's others. It's like, I don't even want to see him on the court right now. So
Yeah.
it's a love hate relationship there. And honestly, Duncan Robinson, I would take in a landslide over Simone Fontecchio. I would take him over Tim Hardaway Jr. Even though I love Tim Hardaway Jr. I would still take him over Tim Hardaway Jr. just because of the age and the money. And Debo is at least younger and is by far one of the NBA's best from three. So you add just a prolific shooter to this team that we haven't really had. Yes, Beasley's good at three, but Duncan Robinson is different. And then adding Karis LeVert into that mix is pretty much Tim Hardaway Jr. 2.0, just younger. So it's like there's even though there's drawbacks from losing certain guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Dennis Schroeder, I think the biggest one that it's going to hurt is Schroeder.
Well, and he just was such a pinnacle leader off the bench at that starting point guard position. You have a guy like Cade in the first unit that really sets the tone early in the first quarter. Dennis Schroeder comes in second half of the first into the second quarter, and he really just led that offensive side of the ball, slowed the game down for some of our younger guys that typically would get a little jittery on the offensive end, swinging the ball, shooting shots early, where Dennis Schroeder just really kind of honed in on moving the ball, finding the right players. So good in the pick and roll situation, which really played well with our big men. So I'm a little worried about that backup point guard position because I just really felt like we solved the issue with Dennis Schroeder. I was really hoping he'd be the long-term guy there for the next couple of years. Um, but you know how the NBA is. There's always transition and guys come and go. I think it will be interesting to see how the Pistons combat their 3-point shooting because it was such a positive for the Detroit Pistons last year with Tim Hardaway and Malik Beasley. And historically, 3-point shooting was an issue for the Detroit Pistons and keeping up with teams that shot the three ball so well. We just couldn't keep up in the scoring column. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Pistons go about it. I think adding a guy like Duncan Robinson, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, and Karis LeVert in a little bit, will help that issue and that narrative of the 3-point shot for the Pistons. But only time will tell with these types of things. And they were just, Hardaway and Beasley were just so consistent that it'll be interesting to see how the new guys fill that role. And I want to talk about some statistics of pointing out why it matters for Detroit losing Tim Hardaway Jr., Dennis Schroeder, and Beasley, because it's not just the roles they had on the Pistons or the vocal leadership those three guys added. There's also like the little statistics things that really prove a lot. Because Dennis Schroeder coming off the bench, I think we might see a bit of decline in that second unit only because he gave those 13 points, 5 assists per game off the bench, which was a major spark. And he also was that calm facilitator under Cade Cunningham. And I think that depending on what Marcus Sasser does, I think that was a good point. What you made, Ryan, is the Marcus Sasser we saw last season, is that the best version we're going to see from him? Or is he going to be able to come out next season and prove to us he can be that calm presence? And maybe he did learn a lot from Dennis Schroeder, rather. Like, it'll just be interesting to see, because from watching Marcus last season, it seemed that maybe his talent had maxed out. And sometimes that just happens with guys in the NBA. They just can't match what some of these other killer NBA point guards can do. So, and also there's the other side of it, Ryan, where we're still early enough in free agency and the offseason that they could pick up somebody, make a simple trade for that backup point guard. I think it just depends on what the front office thinks about Marcus Sasser. And in Trajan Langdon's press conference to end the playoffs against New York, he didn't mention at all Marcus Sasser. He didn't mention what they were going to do with the backup point guard position, because at that point, I think Trajan thought Dennis Schroeder was going to stay on the Pistons, and it just never ended up working out. The other thing about losing Tim Hardaway Jr. is that that 3-point presence. He shot 2.2 threes per game at 36.8%. Rather, he made 2.2 threes per game. That's reliable shooting that's just gone in the wind. Also, that veteran presence. They both Malik and Tim Hardaway offered playoff tested leadership. Hardaway had key outings like his 32-point night in that New York series, and then Schroeder coming off the bench in that New York series. He just had valuable minutes. Ryan, any final thoughts on talking about the losses of some of these veterans from the Pistons? Because I mean, we can't have short-term memory. I mean, we all remember the season Malik Beasley had last year. He had a historic Detroit Pistons season. Any final thoughts?
So one name that we didn't mention in that I was thinking about mentioning earlier, but it slipped my mind. But Dennis Jenkins, he has had a phenomenal summer league so far. 2 games in, last night put up 28 or so against the Rockets. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
But this is, and obviously there was a reason why he was a two-way guy last year. But I think from what I've seen out of him versus what I've seen out of Sasser, and historically speaking, what Trajan Langdon has seen out of Grand Theft Alvarado, is that I think Jose Alvarado and Dennis Jenkins are pretty much identical players. And it took Jose Alvarado 1 year in the G League, and then all of a sudden he was up on the active roster for the full year and had a fantastic impact. Maybe not starting point guard caliber right away, but he had a huge impact on that second unit for the Pelicans, that I honestly see Jenkins getting that nod this upcoming season. Because, yeah, we haven't heard anything on Sasser, and who's to say Sasser's declined or gotten better? We don't know. But we know for a fact that Jenkins has gotten better as a player, because what we saw last year in his summer league was like, okay, he can play. And then this year it's like, okay, he's by far, and this is no discredit to Ron Holland, but like he's the star of the show, realistically, because Ron Holland's just there to really just get some extra reps. That's all it is. Bobby Clintman is there to get more reps and develop more. Dennis Jenkins is there to show Langdon, like, hey, this is what I can do. Give me a chance. Right. That's why he's on that roster. And I think he is by far, at least in my eyes, exceeding expectations. And I think he could be a key player in that second unit. Maybe not even second unit, maybe third unit, rather, and where Sasser does get the nod just because of experience. But I do think Jenkins could have a huge impact on that guard position moving forward.
All right. So we talked about the guys the Pistons lost this offseason. So now let's take some time to talk about the guys they have added to the active roster. And I'm really excited about this guy. Let's talk about who the Pistons drafted with the 37th pick in this year's draft, Chaz Lanier from Tennessee. I'm a fan of this guy, especially after I watched a lot of his film. During the March Madness last season, I was a Tennessee guy, mainly before Zakai Ziegler, who is on the Pistons Summer League team. Chaz Lanier was kind of an underrated guy. I saw him make him saw him make some big threes here and there, but I was just a huge fan of Zakai. And when you look at Chaz Lanier's season last year with the Tennessee Volunteers, he had a great season. He played 38 games, started in all 38, averaged 31 minutes, averaged 18 points for a total of 684 over the season, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, and shot 43% from the field and 39% from the 3 point line, and got nearly 1 steal per game and 1 turnover. So, Ryan, when I'm watching Chaz's film, one of the biggest things that pops off the screen is he is NBA ready bodied. The dude is built. He's thick, got big legs. He's ready to battle in the paint, trying to find his way to rim rush. And then the 3 point shooting was just absolutely great. I noticed that he's not so much great off the dribble, but rather a great at catch and shoot. When his feet are set, it's going to be a knockdown shot. Uh, in watching the film, he reminded me a lot of James Harden. I'm guessing he must be a James Harden fan, just the way he moves on the court, the way he gathers himself for a catch and shoot. His shooting form is a lot like James Harden. I think from watching him, he's the kind of player that could play alongside just about anybody. He could mix very well with the first unit, with the second unit, maybe even, when he's getting some of those garbage minutes, he just kind of mixes with anybody. Anybody can play alongside him. So I think a guy like Chaz could play well alongside a Marcus Sasser, help Marcus out a little bit around the 3 point line. And then also he might have to be a big player this season for the Pistons with the absence of Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. I really like this guy, and he was one that watching draft night, I was a little really, Chaz? Okay, I might have to convince myself of this, but watching film of him, he just passes the eye test. Ryan, as far as Chaz Lanier, anything you like from him? And then also, how much do you think he'll be utilized this season?
I think from what he did at Tennessee, he obviously was a star there. Obviously, as you mentioned, he would go under the radar because you would have Zakai Ziegler or others just really step up.
Right. They're a great team.
But yeah, Tennessee by far one of the best teams in college basketball for years. But what he did there was like, okay, like he can play. It didn't matter what night it was. He always had an effect on the game. And that's what Ron Holland did in G League Ignite. He was one of those guys that even if his 3 point shot wasn't falling, which it had in the past, or anything else was going wrong, or the team just sucked because that team did suck, like Ron Holland made an impact on that team. Good players make impacts on teams, no matter what. And what you saw at Tennessee and then what we've seen so far in Summer League, I see the vision that Trajan Langdon is going for. And I definitely think he's going to be utilized this year. Obviously, probably not as much as a lot of the first round picks would be in this year's draft. But I do think for the Pistons specifically, he's going to be getting decent minutes. And maybe not 15 plus, but he's at least going to get maybe 8 to 10 minutes a game based off of what I've seen so far. Mm-hmm. I see the vision because when you add Duncan Robinson, when you add Karis LeVert, you obviously wanted to get 3 point shooting. Chaz Lanier, fantastic 3 point shooter. If you're shooting above 37% from three at the college level, you're a good shooter. That's Absolutely. The bottom line. So you add pretty much 3 top tier shooters to your roster, and Karis LeVert, who's a career 3 point shooter of 37%. Duncan Robinson's around 39, 40%. You had Chaz Lanier, who's in that mix too. You added 3 point shooting with 3 guys that honestly, contract wise, the payout there isn't going to be as deep as what it would have been if you wanted to go re-sign Tim Hardaway Jr., if you wanted to go re-sign Malik Beasley and Dennis Schroeder and combine all three of them in that singular amount of money would have doubled what you're going to pay Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert, and Chaz Lanier. And so I think Langdon was being very smart with his intent to go out and add three top tier players that maybe not might not be like the first person on any team's given list of guys that they want, but that I do think from a money standpoint, logistics, and just their overall impact on the game, you look at Chaz Lanier and those two guys, like he has a vision. And I think Lanier fits in perfectly with the Pistons right now because I think what Langdon is trying to set out and what JB is trying to set out is they want a free flowing game on offense and on defense. Chaz Lanier, we didn't mention, like, obviously he had the steal in the blocks, but he's actually really good on defense. He's an anchor usually on the court. So I'm excited. I think he'll be utilized a decent amount. Obviously, you can't expect much out of him because he was a second round pick. He wasn't a first round pick. Who's to say what actually happens? But so far from Summer League, I would say he's going to get a decent role. Decent role being like, yes, 8 minutes is not a lot, but it's a decent amount. It's a decent amount to make an impact at least. And maybe he's not playing every single game of the season, but there's going to be times where we're going to have some injuries build up that I think he's going to excel at getting that opportunity. So I'm excited from the defense. I'm excited from his three-point shot. So I'm seeing the vision right before my eyes. And obviously this offseason isn't over yet. There can be a lot of moves still to happen. But from what I'm seeing from the pickup of Chaz Lanier in the draft, which I wasn't like you said, I wasn't blown away by the pick when we first got him. But after sitting down and just taking a deep dive, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, okay, Langdon has a vision right now, and it's definitely going somewhere.
Just a heads up too to the listeners, we will be recapping Summer League statistics, games, record, all of that. So just be on the lookout for that in the next couple weeks. Make sure to subscribe so you can watch that episode. We'll be definitely highlighting Chaz's first couple outings with or underneath the Pistons organization. One thing I did want to mention, I watched Chaz Lanier's game against Arkansas, and there was a couple things to note. It was his best game of the season. He scored 29 points against a rock solid Arkansas team. And may I add, Arkansas is very well coached with the legend John Calipari. So that's just one thing to note. You know, Chaz's best game went up and just dominated against a great Arkansas team. Also, the other thing I noticed when watching that game was obviously Chaz had Zakai Ziegler next to him, who's a great point guard. When Zakai was running the offense, if you watch Chaz and focus in on him, he's constantly trying to find the open pockets on the court. And it reminded me a lot of a Richard Hamilton, right? He's so known for being great without the ball, finding his spots, trying to move defenders into each other, trying to kind of run that baseline, see what they can create on the baseline. And that was one thing that Chaz was great at. And I think that will work really well with this Pistons team. One thing I'd say that too is Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart are known for being good passers as big men. So whether Chaz is playing in the second unit with Isaiah Stewart or getting some time with the second unit in Jalen Duren, I think that those two guys with Chaz trying to find open pockets baseline at the 3-point line, those guys are going to be able to find him and make some good passes for great catch and shoot opportunities. So I'm really excited for what Chaz Lanier is going to bring to the Detroit Pistons. I also am excited to see what Trajan Langdon and JB Bickerstaff are working up and what they kind of have in mind for him. Because like I said, there is a little bit more pressure for Chaz coming into this season. You know, typically a second round pick isn't getting much pressure, but with the Pistons coming off, you know, a playoff appearance, and they should be getting better each and every season, but losing vets like they did, I think there's going to be some pressure on him to make some big time shots and really try to fill that role. Next, let's talk about Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson. Ryan, these are two guys that we've been high on their whole NBA career and during their time with the Michigan Wolverines. Go Big Blue. I am excited about these guys. Obviously, they add that 3-point threat that we are losing with some of the vets. What are some of your first thoughts on adding Karras and Duncan? Because I know you were pretty happy with these moves.
So from a standpoint of thinking about the cap space, we had a lot of cap space going into this free agency. We knew that. But to me, from just a cap space logistical standpoint, these are two fantastic signings because the impact that Karis LeVert had in Cleveland and then even in Atlanta to finish out the season, which
Mm-hmm.
if we go back, I literally made the comment to you, what are the Cavaliers doing right now?
Yeah.
Trading away
Yep.
Karis LeVert.
For
I
DeAndre
thought,
Hunter too.
yes, I thought that was a bad deal. I'm not. It's not that I'm against Hunter, but like I think Levert actually added another level to that Cavaliers team because defensively,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that's not talked about. His defense this past season was out of this world. It was fantastic. Just and then you add his offensive ability com combined with Donovan Mitchell and Co. Like, yeah, you would expect that team to be decent.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they thought Hunter would have been a better fit. I don't necessarily think so. But no, I think the effect that those two guys are going to have on the 3-point shot alone, just like 37, 39% 3-point shooters. Then you add into the mix that honestly, Debo is not bad on defense. He can manage. He is not like, whoa, watch out for Duncan Robinson on defense. But it's not like, okay, he's just not bad. And then Karis LeVert defensively, like I mentioned, is a menace. But I really do think that Langdon and Bickerstaff really wanted to add 3-and-D guys, and they did that. They added Chaz Lanier, he's a 3-and-D. You add Karis LeVert, Duncan Robinson. Well, Duncan Robinson less than Karis LeVert, but 3-and-D. So you had intentions there. You wanted to add to the 3-point shot after losing Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley, and then even Dennis Schroeder. But what's one common thing that those three guys couldn't really do? Dennis Schroeder more so than Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley, they couldn't really play defense. So you added two decent defenders, Chaz Lanier, good defender, and you added 3-point shooting. So I think the two of them on top of I mean, obviously it's going to hurt losing those guys, but I think what they will do on our game, they will create free-flowing offense and defense and allow Cade to just be a magician out there per usual. It's always nice to be in the transition game and have somebody sitting on the corner waiting for a 3-point shot. And that's going to be those two guys. Or it's going to be Chaz Lanier. It's not going to be Marcus Sasser. No offense to Sasser. I love you. It's not going to be you. It's not going to be Jaden Ivey because you're looking for Jaden Ivey to cut to the basket. It's not going to be Jalen Duren, even though he's been working on his jump shot. It's going to be one of those two guys, and you needed that because this past season, yes, you had Tim Hardaway Jr. that could do that, but then maybe there's a game where he's not having a good night. You have two younger guys here that can step up and lead in that position. So I think just their 3-point shooting and their overall defensive impact, and then just the cheapness per se, I think that's what Langdon and Bickerstaff are wanting to get out of those two guys.
All right, let's get in some two statistics for the listeners, just so they can get a little bit of a bigger picture of what Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson did last season. To start off, we're going to talk about LeVert. Like you said, he started the season with the Cavs, got traded to Atlanta, so it was kind of a lot for him last season, but he played in 64 games, 25 minutes per game, averaged 12 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, and 1 turnover per statmuse.com. And then for Duncan Robinson last season with the Miami Heat, he played in 74 games, 24 minutes per game, 11 points, 2.3 rebounds, 2.4 assists, half a steal, and 1 turnover per statmuse.com. And obviously, the kind of the topic today too, in one sense, is the 3-point shooting issue for the Detroit Pistons. Maybe not issue, but just that category is going to be so important for the Pistons to compete in the Eastern Conference. So I wanted to highlight some of the 3-point statistics from LeVert and Duncan Robinson. We're hoping that they're going to be able to solve this category for the Pistons this season. Last year, Karis LeVert averaged 37% from the 3-point line, 1.7 makes per game, so nearly 2 threes per game, and 4.5 attempts per game. He had 106 makes on 284 attempts over 64 games. Duncan Robinson with Miami, he averaged 39% from the 3-point line, 2.6 makes per game, so nearly 3 makes a game, with 7 attempts per game, 190 makes on 483 attempts over 74 games. I think they should be able to solve the 3-point issue for the Detroit Pistons. So on that topic, Ryan, what do you think their role is going to be? Are they for sure second unit guys? Do you think Duncan Robinson maybe is a starter over Tobias? What are some of your thoughts there before we wrap up the last 5 minutes?
So to me, Karis LeVert, second unit. Duncan Robinson, who knows? I think there's a 50-50 chance that he's either starting or he's in the second unit. I'm going to say more so second unit than starting, and that's no disrespect to the player he is, because I think he's a phenomenal player. There's a reason why he started in Miami. He was that good. But I think the impact and the rotation that you have set out to create, I think you can't bench Tobias or Duncan Robinson. I think that would be a mistake. And then obviously, I think Stu is actually going to be the second unit still. I don't think he's actually going to start. So with that being said, Tobias would be at the 4. But then it's like, do you stick Duncan Robinson at the 3? Or do you stick Ron Holland? What do you do there? Definitely Asar Thompson, though. Let's be realistic here. Asar got that position bottled up. So, no, I don't think Duncan Robinson's going to start. I think he's going to be in the second unit for sure. Same with Karis LeVert. Those two, I think the intention, like I said earlier, was cap space, 3-and-D. You add guys to the second unit that can play at a high level, and those two guys specifically can do that. There's a reason why they were averaging darn near 25 minutes a game. And just their impacts on their respective teams in the past. I just think that those two guys are perfect for that second unit. But then it comes into the question, okay, you have LeVert, let's say realistically at the 2, you have Robinson at the 3. They did overlap a little bit at Michigan, so that's cool. But then you have Stu at the 4, but realistically, let's say he's probably going to be at the 5. So that leaves the 4 open, which would probably be B-Ball Paul, or even flip-flop the 2. And then you have, who's the 1? That's the missing component. Who is the 1 in the second unit?
Right.
But no, I don't think Robinson's going to start, and Karis LeVert's not going to start. They're going to be second unit. So that second unit is still in question. But I think for certainty, our starters are solidified at this point. I don't think there's any questions or concerns with our starting lineup. I think realistically now it's just, what is our second unit going to look like, and what is even our third unit going to look like, and what maybe potential lineup situations. But JB Bickerstaff is smart, so I have complete and utter confidence in his coaching ability.
Make sure to comment below what you think Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson's roles are going to be. We'd love to know what you guys have to say. And also, let us know what you think of Chaz Lanier with the 37th pick in this year's draft. Did you like what Trajan did? Did you not? Make sure to comment below and sound off in the comments. We'd love to know what you guys have to say. That will do it for episode number 24 of season 3. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.